GoodTrust continues to evolve. That's our Techstination. Joining us from GoodTrust is co-founder Daniel Sieberg. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, Fred. Great to be with you.
Great to see you again. And as we've said before, GoodTrust is on a mission to protect the digital life and legacy of its users. Give us more of an overview on what's going on with the evolution.
Absolutely. So we like to think of our mission as allowing people to protect what matters, which is different for all of us. And what we're now really focused on is the idea of online estate planning and making it as easy and secure for people to do from the comfort of their own home. And it may involve a consultation with a loved one, a spouse, a partner, whoever it is. But we want to make it as seamless as possible for people to create all of their estate planning documents in one place. And what's new is that we have now released a revocable trust, which includes what's called a pour-over will. So if you were to choose to create a trust, and this helps people to avoid probate and has to do with allocation of property and how you designate that for people. If you choose a trust, it would include this pour-over will, which would allow you to ensure guardianship of your children, designation of other heirlooms or assets. But then you can also have access to an advanced healthcare directive, durable financial power of attorney, pet directive, funeral plans. All of the essential documents that are part of any estate plan are included in this. And you can start with either your will or a trust, depending on what you need or you prefer. And I think one of the big announcements as part of this for us is that we want to make it affordable for people. So all of that would be $149. And that includes all of those documents. And perhaps as importantly, the ability to update them, to edit them, and to share them securely in our digital vault with anybody in your family. So this is sort of the digital era of estate planning. And we want to not only provide everything that people need, but do it in a way that feels accessible.
I don't know if there's statistics available as to how many people actually have these documents that are needed, and I guess many of us tend to ignore it, maybe sometimes until it's too late.
This is it. We don't like to think about the what ifs or the future that we all face someday, our own mortality. Let's just call it what it is. And ideally, over time, as people see that estate planning is something you can do without paying for a high-priced lawyer, without needing to even leave your computer, that it gives people a sense of autonomy, some sense of control, and that it isn't as challenging or tedious or annoying as people might initially think. We created an experience for people that you could do all of your estate planning documents in, I'm going to say, less than 20 or 30 minutes. Now, of course, that requires some amount of maybe getting organized beforehand so that you have access to everything you need. Then you sit down, create it all. We make it possible to print them off, to get them signed or notarized, depending on what the document is, and then to upload those back into your GoodTrust digital vault and to see them all in that one place. So if you sort of imagine the end of a filing cabinets, your GoodTrust account or your digital vault starts to become the place where you can store all of those. And it's not even just your estate planning documents. You can upload any number of documents there and organize them in a way that makes sense, and then share them with anybody in your trusted orbit of network of contacts.
Now, is it a subscription, or how does it work? Is it a one-time fee?
So it's a bit of both. You pay the $149 up front, and that includes your annual subscription fee for the first year. So that's the flat $149. And then every year after that, it will be $39 for the year to basically maintain access to all of those documents, to be able to update them or download them or whatever it is you need to do, and to continue to have access to them and ensure that others in your life can also find them at a time of need. And I think that's one of the important things we want to underscore for people, is that if you were to create an account and not add anybody to it, a trusted contact is what we call them, then there's the potential that these documents may not be discovered. And this is no different than the analog world that we live in. A version of a will could be in somebody's desk, and another version is in a drawer somewhere. So to centralize everything, label them in a way that people can understand what is the latest version. This is where we see some real value for people in the world that we live in. We do so much of we do so much of care and conduct so much of our life online. It just makes sense now to have estate planning there too.
And the idea of having software to create a will certainly isn't new. It's been around for, I don't know how long now, maybe decades. Tell us how you're so different. What's really different here about what you're doing?
We really took the time to simplify the process for people. We went through a lot of different current experiences and wanted to find where are the pain points for people? Where's the friction? Where do people stop? How do we coach behavior, which is something that we want to provide for people as well, a sense of you can do it, because there is a tendency for any of us to maybe start working on our will or think about doing this and then we stop. So how do we encourage people to really feel that motivation that they can do it? And alongside that, we also want to, and this is going to sound a bit lofty potentially, but we want to find the ways to democratize estate planning. So there have been opportunities to do this in the past, but they still might have been too pricey for the average person to maybe think about doing it, which is part of the reason we have this one price for everything, $149, which we believe beats other competitors out there. But it's not just about the money, it's about the experience. It's about we want to work with partners who can help us to find marginalized communities in the United States and elsewhere who may have previously thought that estate planning was out of reach for them or their families, which has historically restricted any number of different demographics from passing on generational accumulated wealth. And wealth is a word that we kind of toss around. It sounds like the wealthy, but wealth is anything that people have earned over the course of their life and they want to pass on to family. And I think the third maybe differentiator for us, aside from the digital vault kind of stitching this all together, is the idea that we want to make this something that people enjoy doing, that they actually are invested in, and that it's as easy as doing your taxes online. It becomes something you do, or maybe check in a couple times a year, and you ensure that your estate plans are as up to date as possible.
And in terms of couples, often you have a husband and wife or whatever the situation is, trying to do this kind of thing in a sense together. They would each need to have their own account here. Is that the way it would work?
So we're offering a family plan, which means that individual members of the family can also create their documents within that account and share them as makes sense. A husband and a wife, let's say, need two different wills or two different trusts, depending on how they want to decide everything. So these are important conversations to have with your partner. And, we want to not only provide all of the tools and products, if you will, for people to do this, but we also have an end-of-life planning guide. We have a number of articles and research that we've done around all of this. It's all been verified by leading attorneys who we have talked to ensure that it adheres to what's required. And I would say that the other piece of this is the digital side. And so as you go through creating your will, you also have the opportunity to decide what happens to my digital stuff, what happens to my Facebook account, what happens to all of my cryptocurrency, what happens to my LinkedIn account. You can specify within your will what you would like to happen to all of those virtual assets or accounts. And I think that ultimately this is, about 2/3 of Americans do not have a will, and adults, and that is upwards of 120 to 130 million Americans who don't have a will. And to help to close that gap, what we've learned from talking to customers and partners and others is it needs to be as as enjoyable and frictionless as possible so that people can get the peace of mind that they need and then go back to living their life and not feel like they're bogged down with trying to figure out everything that's required. We want to have it all in one place.
And people may not think they need it until they're 60 or 70 or maybe 80, but it's really not the case, is it? It's a good idea to get started much earlier.
It is. And I think, the pandemic certainly spurred more conversations with younger people. I'm going to say, let's call it from sort of millennials and up, knowing that, and certainly we saw our own just mortality on display all around us during the pandemic. The surveys that we've conducted and what I've read as well is that it put the idea of death and passing on more at the forefront of our collective minds than it had in recent history. Now, does that mean we've all changed our behavior and we're so much better now at planning and we all of course not. We're all human in that way and we don't like to think about things we don't like to think about. But if we can give people something that feels like a valuable experience, something that doesn't feel depressing or annoying or just bothersome in some way, then at least we can ask people to take care of it now while you have a clear mind and the capacity to do it, and then put it aside. And it's there when you need to go back to it. And that's something that we think is super important. Historically, if people had created a will and then maybe they worked with a lawyer or something, they'd have all these printed documents, but they'd need to go back and do a manual edit or a red line or go back to the attorney. And in this case, we make it pretty straightforward to change whatever you need to. You would need to reprint it and have it re-signed. Someday, I think we're going to get into a place where e-signatures and all of that are valid as part of estate plans. We're not there yet in the United States. It is happening in some parts of the world. In Canada, it's something that people are really talking about and encouraging. So eventually, all of this will be something that you can do online.
And while the image may be that there's a lot of drama sometimes attached to this, if people watch Succession and shows like that, it doesn't have to be, and maybe there shouldn't be typically.
That's right. And ideally, estate planning is a gift to the people who are left behind because it affords them the clarity that they crave after somebody has passed on. Nobody wants to argue and, turn families against each other. And but that can and does happen. And so as much as we can provide a service, a product that people feel like is meaningful to them. And again, that it's fairly quick, fairly seamless. It's a pretty straightforward series of questions and answers and fill in the blanks. And then you're done. And everybody can turn their attention back to the even more fun stuff.
There are some fun things too that you have in the lineup.
That's right. We haven't, we talk a lot about digital legacy, and that part of that is contained in the idea of designating what happens to your accounts and your social media and any of that within your will. But we also have life stories tools and products that allow you to animate photos, attach a story to a photo of, say, your grandparents so that they could actually speak. And we use AI to do that. And it could sort of tell you what happened in that photo. So that is a part of what we're working on that I would say, particularly in light of everything happening with AI and ChatGPT and all of that we're all hearing about. There's an opportunity to think about how do we preserve our memories and stories in this new virtual age that we live in. And that is something that we're going to continue to explore. For now, I think the focus for us is to ensure that we have all of the estate planning tools available for people. And then we can think more about the digital legacy part, which is a little further out for most people. Estate planning is kind of a here and now.
Terrific. Where can people go for more info?
So you can get started at mygoodtrust.com. And again, it only takes about 20 minutes or so to create your entire estate plan. It's the kind of thing that you can do with your your partner or your spouse, and maybe do it together. And then it's done, and you can celebrate and move on with your life.
Just terrific. Again, the site is mygoodtrust.com. Daniel Sieberg, thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you, Fred. My pleasure. Good to see you.